Hello and welcome to GREENFLEET Talks. My name is Kate Armitage and I'm your host for our discussion today. And I'm delighted to be joined by Tris Benson, Commercial Director at Engineius. Hi, Tris.
Hi, Kate. Pleasure to be here.
Nice to meet you too. Today, we're discussing the road to zero. And whilst a lot of the focus is currently on passenger cars and light commercial vehicles, there are other mobility solutions that will play an important role in becoming net zero. Tris, by way of introduction, can you tell us about yourself and can you remind us what makes Engineius so innovative?
Yes, for sure. So, well, first of all, thank you very much for having us here today, Kate and GREENFLEET. Very excited to talk to you about this topic. So, quick introduction of myself. So my name is Tris Benson. I'm the commercial director at Engineius. That means I'm responsible for our growth plans and our customer base, essentially, and the offer that we take to market. And so I think the key thing about Engineius is really we're here to do things differently. And we want to innovate in the automotive and specifically vehicle movement markets and be a disruptor. And that's the company's been going for a fair few years now. We've been quite successful at that. We've won awards consistently year on year. And so definitely it's an exciting company. We've had another exciting year in 2022. But really, if I were to say the things that are at the heart of Engineius, it's simplicity. So we want to make vehicle movement easy for customers and also for our drivers, for our driver network. We want to be based on tech. So that's how we see this industry changing. And also, as I say, in order to do things differently, we need to focus on some of the key areas that are going to change in this world. So that includes, our people, diversity agenda, our sustainability agenda, which obviously is the topic for today, and really that's what we believe makes Engineius different.
And Tris, you mentioned utilising technology because vehicle movement isn't a new thing, but traditionally when vehicles needed to be moved around the country, they were put on the back of car transporters. But you've managed to leverage technology to eliminate a lot of that. Is that right?
That's exactly right, and I think one of the areas that really meets what the customers are looking for today is that approach. So traditionally, it's very common to put vehicles either on a transporter or to use chaser vehicles to deliver a vehicle. Whereas what we're trying to do is create scale using a marketplace model, and that means that our drivers, they tend to self-select their jobs. They combine jobs. The technology itself combines jobs as well. And that means that, you have less of a need for those less green things like chaser vehicles, transporters and all that stuff. So that's a critical part of the offer to our customers.
That's really helpful, Tris. Thank you. I talk about this a lot, but the government has always been technology neutral when it comes to net zero road transport. However, the country mostly seems to be geared towards electrification. Thinking about what you do, what other ways of transport do you see can help a business become net zero?
Yeah, so I think for sure, we all see this, right? That electric has been the mega trend in this industry for the last 5+ years. Really, that's since it's really taken off. I think the key point here that the government's saying is that they want to remain technology neutral, and to some people that seems non-committal, I think. So it seems like the government is maybe resisting to put their bet in one place, but really I think that's the key perspective to take here. The reason for that is we need a diverse approach to solve this this challenge that we all have. Certainly, it won't just be electric that gets us there. Other things, of course, the exciting things that people see coming are for example, hydrogen. That's the one that you see most people talking about when you interact with the fleet world today. But so what I'd say is like this mindset and the British mindset, which is let's not, choose only one thing, and let's remain open-minded, and let's let the investors and the the think tanks support different avenues to solve the climate problem. I think that's the right approach. That's the right approach here.
Great, thank you, Tris. So for an organisation, and there is plenty out there who haven't started their electrification plans, what would you say is the best way for them to assess whether electric vehicles are right for their fleet or not?
Yeah, so this is an interesting question, and and actually I've spent some time doing like these assessment studies for how applicable electric vehicles are to large fleets and to smaller fleets. And if you go back a few years, definitely we were all talking about range anxiety, and of course that's a factor as well. There are other factors, so how you're going to charge the vehicle. If you run a large fleet, will somebody be able to charge it at home? Will they need to charge it at a depot? If you want to charge it at a depot, what does that mean that you need to do in terms of the infrastructure for that site? But so I think that is the kind of the common response here, which is let's do some analysis into range anxiety. Let's look at how we're going to charge the vehicles, etc. What I'd like to say today is like to come at it from a slightly different angle, which is to say, let's step back actually, and let's say, what is the vision of our company in terms of sustainability? Because I think where we are today, and particularly with the cost of living, changes in the market that we've had in the last 6 months or so, I think there are sacrifices that need to be made. I don't think there is necessarily a silver bullet where we find the right application for electric vehicles and therefore completely electrify the fleet. I think you need to say, actually, our sustainability program and our road to net zero is going to drive our business for the next 2, 5, 20 years. And so there will be some trade-offs. So rather necessarily than saying, okay, what's the best way to do this right now? Are we applicable to have EVs? Actually, I'd encourage the management teams to be stepping back and saying, existential for us, which I can promise you it is. And that means that you look at it in a different way and you're willing to make some trade-offs. So I think that's the first step, is actually step back and say, realize that this is really going to matter for your business in the next, 2, 5, 10, 20 years.
Well, we certainly talk about stakeholder buy-in quite regularly. And that approach that you've described is a great way of starting that, just taking a step back and at a strategic level, looking at what sustainability means. And I mean, it strikes me that, and we hear this, but you've kind of put it into action at Engineius. Doing things different, saying, right, we're going to change the way we do business because we need to be sustainable, can be an opportunity as well, and can give you a USP. That's right.
And for sure at Engineius, this has been a key topic from our management team's perspective since we started. And we basically see it in two ways. One is how do we deal with, how do we set ourselves up to be as low on the carbon as possible as a whole business. And then the second side is how do we offset the carbon that we can't avoid. So to take that first point, that's why we've set up the organization like we have, without the chaser vehicles, with like technology doing job matching, which means that drivers do not need to rely on each other for lifts, and can minimize the use of other transport methods. But then the other side is actually saying, okay, we want to go a bit further, and that's the carbon offsetting program that we've done. And so we actually invest in a bamboo farm in Nicaragua, and that's that investment that we put in each year gives us the net zero status. So yeah, we're very proud of that, of course.
Great. And there are kind of three elements to this, isn't there? There's the reduce your footprint, go zero emission wherever you can, and then what's left is what you're offsetting effectively.
Right.
I think my one of the things that we have to think about is that there are businesses who are saying EVs just aren't suitable for my business today. They're not viable technically, or they're not cost effective. But there are other things that those businesses can be doing. And you touched on it when you said eliminating chaser vehicles and utilizing other forms of transport, for example. So,
right.
So what are the things that you've done that you would advise other businesses to be looking at?
Yeah, so I think as I said before, I think the first point is like, how do we actually get the company to see this as something that is really like for the long term? So that's where I would start. And then if you have that kind of alignment at management team level, and then that can be cascaded into the business, then you have the ability to look into the business in a proper, you know, in a real soul searching way. And the point is, like, the way that you're doing business today won't be the way that you're doing business in, you know, 10 years time. And so I think that is the key, is like looking at how you do business. What does your supply chain look like? Also, what does your customer base look like? And realizing that really this, you know, the challenge that we have on sustainability and carbon is everyone's problem. And if you're able to look at your organization critically, then you can choose, you know, how you want to set up your business to be more carbon efficient. The example of, you know, chaser vehicles, we've said a few times, but that's a clear example, you know, for Engineius. But in order to do that, we've had to say sustainability is an important thing for us. We're going to set up our business model which fits with that goal, and then, you know, we're able to do it. So it is important that, you know, you can look at your business in that critical way, but you need to have that kind of longer vision from the management team to be able to do it, I believe.
And you mentioned just then, Tris, about the supply chain, and I'm increasingly hearing people talking about scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. You know, if you think of it as like a bullseye target, and you know, if you can sort out emissions from your own fleet is one thing, but we do also need to be focused on our own supply chains, don't we? Why is that so important, and how can that be accounted for?
So I think the best way to understand this point is to think about it from, you know, if you take a step out of your organization and you look at it in the way that, you know, governments and think tanks think about it, the phrase that they would use is system or systemic change. And what that means is, you know, to try and kind of boil it down, we have such a huge challenge in front of us here, that no one party is going to be able to make the difference. In fact, to make the difference, you need to have everybody making maximum effort across their businesses, across their stakeholder groups, in order to make the change that we need. And that's effectively systems change, you know, in a nutshell. But so what that means, to your question, is like the supply chain of a company is a key connection and a key another party who needs to engage with the climate challenge. And the other really important thing, remember, is like, I have a supply, my supply chain has a supply chain, yeah, and so forth and so forth. And so if we are able to create this kind of knock-on effect of me holding my supply chain to account, my customer, by the way, holding me to account, and so on and so forth, then we create this kind of wider accountability for the climate topic. And I think that's the really important thing to get your head around. So yes, it's important for you as a company to think about what your suppliers are doing, and that's the direct impact you can have. but it's also about your suppliers doing the same thing for their suppliers and so forth. And that's how we contribute towards this thing called systems change.
Tris, that was a great answer, and really, really refreshing to get that reminder that at an individual business level or at a fleet level, yes, we all have to make change, but we need to all do it together, and we need to work together to achieve that.
Exactly.
Particularly if you want to say that your business is truly net zero.
Exactly right.
Tris, it has been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much.
My pleasure as well. Thank you, Kate.
That is about all we've got time for. I would like to thank Engineius for joining GREENFLEET Talks. I'd like to thank you for watching. Please tune in to GF365 again.